Good morning from the International Space Station Flight Control Room here at the Johnson Space Center in Houston. Welcome back to our coverage of the soon-to-be departure of the Expedition 47 crew from the International Space Station as they prepare for the undocking of their Soyuz TMA-19M spacecraft from the Rassvet module on the Earth-facing side of the Russian segment of the International Outpost. The three crew members who are leaving the space station are all strapped into their seats, their respective seats in the descent module of the Soyuz spacecraft. Tim Peake, the European Space Agency astronaut, the first British astronaut to fly aboard the International Space Station, strapped into the right seat of the descent module. In the middle seat is Yuri Malenchenko, the Soyuz commander, soon to wrap up his sixth flight into space in a whopping 828 days, placing him second on the all-time list of humans who have flown in space behind Gennady Padalka's 879 days in space. And in the left seat, serving as board engineer number one, as he did for launch 186 days ago, is NASA's Tim Kopra, the Expedition 47 commander, who's about to wrap up his second flight into space and an aggregate total of 244 days away from the planet. The three crew members have been busy over the past couple of orbits, or 3 hours, since they made their way inside the Soyuz spacecraft, conducting leak checks and communications checks, placing the Soyuz on autonomous power, and closing the hatch between the descent module and the uppermost section of the Soyuz spacecraft, the orbital module, conducting leak checks between those hatches as well, and then climbing into their Russian Sokol launch and entry suits and declaring those suits ready to go. All of those leak checks proving the suits to be airtight, and the stage is set now for the physical separation of the Soyuz from the Rassvet module just 20 minutes from now at 12:52 and 30 seconds a.m. Central Time, 1:52 a.m. Eastern Time. About an hour and 15 minutes ago, the Soyuz docking mechanism was powered up, and the hooks holding the Soyuz to the Rassvet module since its arrival back on December 15th of last year drove open. The stage set now for springs on both sides of the docking interface to push off against one another, creating the physical separation that will send the Soyuz spacecraft on its way. Three hours ago at the hatchway between the Rassvet module and the Soyuz spacecraft, the crew members gathered for final handshakes, an opportunity to say farewell to one another. The three crew members, Yuri Malenchenko on the left, Tim Peake on the right, Tim Kopra in the middle, posed for pictures from their three remaining crewmates, Jeff Williams, who is the new expedition commander of the International Space Station, and his two Russian crewmate colleagues, Alex Gripochka and Alexei Ovchinin. They said goodbye to the three departing crewmates before the three Expedition 47 crew members made their way inside the Soyuz spacecraft to close the hatch behind them. Kopra was first in, followed by Tim Peake. Then Yuri Malenchenko, the Soyuz commander, was the last inside. As they closed the hatches, the hatch closure on the Soyuz side of the docking interface occurred at 9:34 p.m. Central Time, again just about 3 hours ago. That was followed by the closing of the Rassvet hatch about a minute later and initiated the series of leak checks that we described just a moment ago. Since those hatches were closed, here in the Mission Control Room, Flight Director Courtney McMillan polled her team of flight controllers and received a go for undocking. That was relayed to the Russian Shift Flight Director at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov on the outskirts of Moscow. So everything is set. The stage is set for the undocking of the Soyuz to begin the journey home for Malenchenko, Peake, and Kopra. By the time the trio lands on the steppe of Kazakhstan about 3 hours and 39 minutes from now, they will have wrapped up 186 days in space, 2,976 orbits of the Earth, and a journey of 78.7 million statute miles. Here in the flight control room at the International Space Station flight control room at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, on the right side of your screen is Flight Director Courtney McMillan. She is joined on console by astronaut Jim Kelly, who will be talking directly to the station crew for anything that is required following the undocking of the Soyuz spacecraft. Again, as we mentioned, leaving the 3 crew members behind aboard the station, the 3 crew members comprising Expedition 48 that will formally begin at the time that the Soyuz undocks just 16 minutes from now, will be the new commander of the station, NASA's Jeff Williams, again joined by Russian cosmonauts Alexei Ovchinin and Alex Skropochka, who will be a 3-man crew for the next 3 weeks during this so-called indirect handover period. The next trio of residents to be launched to the International Space Station will be flying down to the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan in just a week. Kate Rubins of NASA, Anatoly Ivanishin of Roscosmos, and Takuya Onishi of the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency. Again, they'll be departing for Baikonur on Friday, June 24th, for final pre-launch training that will lead to their liftoff in their new Soyuz MS, or Modified Systems 01 spacecraft that is scheduled to launch on July 7th at 7:36 a.m. Baikonur time, which will be 8:36 p.m. Central Time on the night of July 6th. There is a specific 2-day rendezvous that is planned for the Soyuz crew that will be launching from Baikonur on July 7th, a 2-day rendezvous, a shakedown flight, if you will, of this modified Soyuz with upgraded systems. So the docking will result on July 9th, or late on the night of July 8th U.S. time, to bring the station crew back to its full 6-person complement. The undocking and landing is being supervised half a world away at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov on the outskirts of Moscow. As we mentioned, there is a balcony view from a camera on the balcony of the Russian Control Center looking at the front screens, and the Russian flight controllers seated watching over their data as they prepare for the undocking of the Soyuz spacecraft, now just 14 minutes away. In Kazakhstan, a NASA, European Space Agency, and Russian Search and Recovery Forces team is beginning to make its way from Karaganda, the staging city for tonight's landing, to the landing site in Kazakhstan. Several of the Russian Mi-8 helicopters are already airborne for the 2-hour flight from Karaganda directly to the landing site, which is about 90 miles to the southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan. In all, by the time the Soyuz arrives at its landing site, 12 Russian helicopters will have been deployed with landing personnel, 8 arriving directly at the landing site, 2 others going further to the southwest to the ballistic landing site, which would be staffed by those helicopters and associated personnel in the unlikely event that the Soyuz would go into a ballistic landing or a shortfall of its intended landing site. And the final 2 helicopters will be flying in an area midway between the ballistic landing site and the nominal landing site, just in case they are needed as well. But the nominal landing site is the focus of attention for the 8 prime helicopters, 2 Antonov fixed-wing aircraft, and 4 all-terrain vehicles who will be on the ground with the aircraft, the helicopters, and the Antonov the Antonov fixed-wing aircraft flying in a racetrack pattern around the landing site, waiting for the approach of the Soyuz TMA-19M spacecraft under its familiar orange and white chute. The weather at the landing site is good. A couple of showers have passed throughout the Karaganda area well to the southeast of the landing site. The forecast for landing time, which is 3 hours and 34 minutes from now, or 4:14 a.m. Central Time, 3:14 p.m. mid-afternoon at the landing site in Kazakhstan, calls for just a few clouds at 10,000 feet and 25,000 feet. Winds from the northwest at about 11 knots, and a nice mid-June temperature of 79 degrees Fahrenheit that will greet Malenchenko, Peak, and Kopra. The undocking, again, is just 11 and a half minutes from now. Again, springs on both sides of the docking interface will push off against one another, resulting in the Soyuz spacecraft leaving the Rassvet module docking port from which it has been mated since December 15th of last year. There will be two separation burns to phase the Soyuz away from the International Space Station, setting it up for a deorbit burn of 4 minutes and 37 seconds in duration that will be initiated at 3:22 a.m. Central Time. Once the deorbit burn is complete, the Soyuz will begin to make its way towards the Earth's atmosphere. Atmospheric entry will follow the separation of the three sections of the Soyuz spacecraft. The crew, of course, strapped into their seats in the middle section or the descent module. The Soyuz will enter into the Earth's atmosphere. Temperatures around the spacecraft building up to 2,500 degrees and repelled by that heat shield, with the command to open the Soyuz parachute at 4 a.m. Central Time. The Soyuz will descend towards its landing site target. The firing of the final braking rockets will take place just a second or two before touchdown. Touchdown is expected at 4:14 and 39 seconds a.m. Central Time, 3:14 and 39 seconds p.m. at the landing site itself, about 6 hours, 7 minutes before sunset in Kazakhstan. Once the crew is on the ground in Kazakhstan, they will be extracted one by one from their seats in the descent module by recovery personnel and RSC Energia technical personnel. They'll be placed in comfortable chairs outside just nearby their spacecraft, where they'll have an opportunity to get their land legs back a bit after 186 days of weightlessness. They'll be carried in those comfortable chairs into an inflatable medical tent that is nearby to where the spacecraft will touch down. Once inside the medical tent, the three crew members will receive initial medical tests. They'll get out of their Russian launch and entry suits and into more comfortable flight clothing, and then they'll board three respective helicopters, one for each crew member, and fly 2 hours back to the staging city of Karaganda. Once in Karaganda, they will be greeted in a short traditional Kazakh welcoming ceremony before they board separate aircraft, Kopra and Peak, to board a NASA jet that will fly first to Bodo, Norway, where Peak will get off with his flight surgeon and then make his way toward an ESA aircraft, a European Space Agency plane, that will fly Peak to the European Astronaut Center in Cologne, Germany. Kopra will continue on with NASA personnel back to the Johnson Space Center in Houston. Malenchenko will board a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft in Karaganda and fly directly to Chkalovsky Airfield outside of the training base and his home in Star City, Russia, on the outskirts of Moscow. Coming up on the 7.5-minute mark till undocking. Again, the hooks holding the Soyuz spacecraft to the Rassvet module on the Earth-facing side of the Russian segment of the International Space Station were opened about 2.5 hours ago. We will be acquiring communications from the Soyuz spacecraft through Russian ground stations momentarily, and that'll set the stage for the commanding of the springs on both sides of the docking interface to push off against one another and result in the physical separation of the Soyuz from the Rassvet module.
Approach. And we are observing now. Moscow SS.
From truss cameras on the International Space Station, a good view in the center of your screen at the Soyuz TMA-19M spacecraft, currently mated to the Rassvet module, but not for long. Undocking schedule just 5 minutes and 40 seconds from now. On the right is the ISS Progress 62 cargo ship that will be undergoing some testing of a replacement telerobotically operated rendezvous system on July 1st with an automated undocking and a manual redocking in a engineering test before it departs for good on July 3rd.
I have wide angle. D2 indicator is not illuminated. S16 indicator not illuminated. The light.
Kopra, Peak, and Malenchenko just minutes away now from departing the International Space Station that has been their home for the past 186 days and begin the trek home to wrap up a journey of more than 78 million miles.
Prepared. At 8 hours.
The International Space Station is now in free drift, all thrusters disabled to prevent any perturbations on the Soyuz vehicle at the time of physical separation. Undocking now less than 4 minutes away. Undocking again is scheduled at 12:52 and 30 seconds a.m. Central Time. 3 minutes after undocking, the first of 2 separation burns will be executed by the Soyuz engine, the first of 8 seconds in duration to increase its departure rate by about 0.6 of a meter per second. The second separation burn, a much larger one of 30 seconds in duration, will occur at 12:56 and 50 seconds a.m. Central Time. The International Space Station currently orbiting 254 miles above the Earth, about to cross the border between China and Mongolia, flying from southwest to northeast in an orbit inclined 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator. And there's a view of the engineering overlay through Russian ground stations of the View from the Soyuz external television camera.
Command.
Docking mechanism on the Soyuz powered up, standing by for physical separation just over 2 minutes from now.
And we can send the undocking command at the time that we planned. Yes, we copy. Agate, please rotate the image. Copy. And thank you. We can see now. We send the command. Indicator is not illuminated. Electrical connectors have been mated. S11 indicator.
Just over a minute now until undocking.
And A13.
Yuri Malenchenko in the center seat of the Soyuz descent module. To his left, board engineer number 1 is Tim Kopra of NASA. And in the right seat of the descent module, Tim Peake of the European Space Agency, wrapping up the first visit by a British astronaut to the International Outpost.
We need to activate the Odyssey mode. And indicator is not illuminated.
Standing by for physical separation. Undocking confirmed.
We started this
At 12:52 a.m. Central Time, 1:52 a.m. Eastern Time,
separation. Yes.
as the Soyuz and the International Space Station flew 254 miles over far eastern Mongolia.
Give me your estimate.
With undocking, Expedition 48 is now formally underway aboard the International Space Station under the command of NASA's Jeff Williams.
What is your estimate of the docking port? No comments. Copy. It's all clean.
And this is a view from the Soyuz as it backs away from the Rassvet module of the International Space Station. Again, undocking occurring on time at 12:52 a.m. Central, 1:52 a.m. Eastern Time.
In a minute. Waiting for the first burn in 3 minutes. Copy.
We're about a minute away from the first separation burn. Again, that will be an 8-second burn to increase the opening rate between the Soyuz and the station by about 0.6 of a meter per second.
Soyuz CMA 19M departing. Farewell, gentlemen. See you on the ground.
The traditional ringing of the bell on board the International Space Station by its new commander, NASA's Jeff Williams.
Good luck to you. See you on the ground. See you soon.
Having launched last December 15th, the Soyuz TMA-19M begins the journey home. Next stop, the steppe of Kazakhstan.
Thruster activation. Yes. We copy.
First separation burn underway.
8 seconds of operation.
And the separation burn complete.
We see the maneuver. Yes, we can observe the maneuver.
Less than 2 minutes away from the second of this pair of separation burns. The Soyuz spacecraft has completed an orientation maneuver as planned. Second separation burn now underway. This is about a 30-second burn to increase the opening rate by about 1.6 meters per second.
Copy. We can see thruster activation. Yes, we copy. And deactivation.
And the second separation burn complete and good.
Есть инструкция. Выключили сдусы, акселерометр наддув.
Accelerometers deactivated. And do refresh. Copy that.
Good views of the Soyuz TMA-19M spacecraft with Tim Kopra, Tim Peake, and Yuri Malenchenko on board as the Soyuz and the International Space Station fly over the northernmost Japanese islands.
And now E1. E1 command executed, and we have indicator illuminated and SSVP to off. Copy. Indicators are not illuminated and deactivating the light.
Yuri Malenchenko, the veteran Soyuz commander in the home stretch of his 6th flight into space, is now setting the controls on board the spacecraft from the undocking set of commands to the different set of ballistics commands that will set the stage for the deorbit burn that will begin the trek home for the Soyuz. The deorbit burn scheduled 2 hours, 22.5 minutes from now.
Agate, MCC Moscow.
Agate.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Please monitor.
Да, есть перекладка визира, подтверждаем. Выполнили заключительное.
If Vizier is up and running, it is. Send the Get4 command at 0906 at the end of the compass and perform closeout operations. Copy and work.
Great shot of the Soyuz against the limb of the Earth. The Soyuz is flying over the South Bering Sea right now, about to begin a northwest to southeasterly course.
Just wanted to remind you.
2 hours, 21 minutes away from the deorbit burn of 4 minutes, 37 seconds in duration. A retrograde maneuver that will essentially act as a braking maneuver to enable the Soyuz to slow down and be captured by Earth's gravity to enter the Earth's atmosphere in its final plunge toward its landing site in south-central Kazakhstan. Search and recovery personnel that include NASA and European Space Agency personnel are beginning to depart the Karaganda airport in Russian Mi-8 helicopters to make their way towards that landing site, which is about a 2-hour flight from Karaganda to the southwest.
Agate, greetings. How copy?
Слышим вас.
Loud and clear. Yuri Ivanovich. Hello. And both teams. Hello, guys.
Приветствую.
Hello.
Рада слышать.
Glad to hear you.
Приятно слышать твой бодрый голос, Юр.
It's a pleasure to hear your voice. Everything is fine on the ground. All services in Karaganda, all teams are ready. The weather on the landing site is pretty good. So, stack pressure, the pressure is 751.5, and the wind speed is about 10 meters. But otherwise, everything's nominal. Yuri Vladimirovich, we copy all. Thank you for the heads up. All right, guys, I won't be distracting you. We are waiting for you on the ground.
Приняли. До встречи.
Copy. We'll see you soon. See you soon, guys.
Quick update from search and recovery personnel patched in to the Soyuz spacecraft through the Russian Mission Control Center, providing a status report on preparations at the landing site.
I got it.
Again, the weather forecast for landing is expected to be good.
Go ahead.
Just a few clouds, some rain showers passed to the southeast of the landing site.
Successfully. Everything is nominal.
Еще раз не расслышал.
Come again. All the settings.
And there's a unique view of the Soyuz TMA-19M spacecraft and the moon.
You have them, so everything's nominal. Oh, we copy.
the moon serving as a dramatic backdrop for the Soyuz TMA-19M spacecraft that undocked from the International Space Station just 13 minutes ago at 12:52 a.m. Central Time, 1:52 a.m. Eastern Time, and now has separated from the station with a pair of engine firings, phasing to a distance well away from the station for the deorbit burn that is scheduled at 3:22 7 seconds a.m. Central Time. That will be a 4-minute, 37-second retrograde braking maneuver to slow the Soyuz down and allow it to drop out of orbit for its descent back into the Earth's atmosphere, headed for its landing site about 90 miles to the southeast of the remote town of Zhezkazgan in south-central Kazakhstan. Again, a dramatic picture from a truss camera on the International Space Station showing the Soyuz phasing away from the complex, the moon serving as a gorgeous backdrop for this departure of Tim Kopra, Tim Peake, and Yuri Malenchenko after 186 days aboard the orbiting laboratory. Left behind aboard the International Space Station now with Expedition 48 formally underway under the command of NASA's Jeff Williams and his two Russian crewmates, Alexei Ovchinin and Oleg Skripochka. They have been in space and aboard the station now for 92 days. They will remain aboard the complex until their landing, which is scheduled for early September. During their 186 days in space and aboard the station, Malenchenko, Kopra, and Peake saw the arrival of 5 visiting vehicles, 2 Russian Progress resupply ships, 1 SpaceX Dragon resupply ship that brought the Bigelow Expandable Activity Module to the station, 1 orbital ATK Cygnus resupply ship that is still orbiting the Earth, and 1 Soyuz crew vehicle, the TMA-20M, that brought Williams, Ovchinin, and Skripochka to the complex back in March. Tim Kopra conducted 2 spacewalks during his time on orbit. Tim Peake conducted 1, and Yuri Malenchenko conducted spacewalk. And to give you a dimension of the time spent on orbit, Kopra, Peak, and Malenchenko arrived at the station on December 15th, just hours after their launch from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. And at that time, the year-long crew members, former NASA astronaut Scott Kelly and Russian cosmonaut Mikhail Kornienko, still had 2.5 months left in their year-long mission. This is Mission Control Houston, continuing to savor these stunning views of the Soyuz TMA-19M with the moon serving as a dramatic backdrop. The Soyuz phasing away from the International Space Station following its undocking that occurred at 12:52 a.m. Central Time. The Soyuz moving to a point well away from the station where its engines will fire for 4 minutes and 37 seconds in a deorbit burn just over 2 hours from now at 3:22 a.m. Central Time. That will begin the deceleration of the Soyuz, allowing it to drop out of orbit, targeted for a landing in south-central Kazakhstan at 4:14 and 39 seconds a.m. Central Time this morning, 3:14 p.m. at the landing site in Kazakhstan. The collective search and recovery forces, along with NASA and European Space Agency personnel, are beginning to make their way from Karaganda, the staging city in Kazakhstan, to the landing site. They'll be moving out in a series of Russian Mi-8 helicopters already at the landing site, 4 all-terrain vehicles, and soon to arrive at the landing site, 2 Russian Antonov fixed-wing aircraft, one of which serves as a flying command and control center, relaying voice, data, and telemetry from the Soyuz to the flight controllers that you see here in this view from a camera on the balcony of the Russian Mission Control Center. So with the Soyuz having safely undocked from the International Space Station, we'll wrap up our undocking coverage. With a programming note, we will be back on the air just an hour and 45 minutes from now at 3 a.m. Central Time, 4 a.m. Eastern Time with our landing coverage that will set up for the deorbit burn and the landing itself in Kazakhstan and all of the video associated with that. So until we rejoin you at 3 a.m. Central, 4 a.m. Eastern Time, the Expedition 47 trio of Tim Kopra, Tim Peake, and Yuri Malenchenko now flying in their Soyuz spacecraft free of the International Space Station with just hours to go before they touch down on the steppe of Kazakhstan. We'll be back with all of that coverage coming up at 3 a.m. Central Time. In the meantime, this is Mission Control Houston.